Hello and welcome to the Dad and Sons podcast. I'm your starting host for this week, Liam. Joined with me, as always, are my lovely sons and fathers, also possibly mothers and daughters, Matt Visual and George Beedman.
Hey.
Howdy, partner.
How's it going, boys? How we doing?
Good. We can see each other.
We can see each other, which for an audio feature is not great.
After last week's streamed episode, we decided to try and use our webcams even when we're not featuring them, because this way we can know when we're talking, so we don't talk over each other.
Yeah, we can dial up the chemistry. So if it sounds different or it's worse, then blame Skype. Just blame Skype.
Yeah, blame Skype.
It's not our fault.
Don't blame me, the editor.
For those who cannot see him, yes, George is wearing a Metal Gear Solid t-shirt.
Yes.
On the one day where we happen to use webcams on the podcast, I happen to be wearing a Metal Gear shirt. I guess that's some wild coincidence.
He does also have a trilby behind him, but the less we say about that, the better.
Liam, you're forgetting that you can actually see him on the keyboard now.
That is true. I can watch you like a hawk.
Well, how can I segue us from topic to topic with smooth, elucidated language without being able to scroll around and press buttons on the outline?
Is Liam frozen? Liam's frozen.
Oh my god, you guys! Oh, there we go. Skype's already fucked up.
Okay, well, the people listening to it with audio are not going to know that, so we should probably keep the visual hijinks to a respectable minimum.
He was frozen in place. All right.
Well, back to it.
we have a few topics that we have all.
But starting this week, we went out to the Twitterverse, as always, reached out globally, worldwide, to ask the lovely listeners of this show another tweet question you can get at us, depending on who tweets it out per week. But this week, I tweeted it out, and it was with the Game Awards. Our one night of the year as gamers to rise up and dominate the media space. The Keeley's Bonanza. Tell us, what's your game of the year, but tell us in 3 words why. So we had hundreds of responses to this question, and a lot of them were great, but I'm just going to straight up start with the first one that almost came across me, which is still my favorite, which is from Bud3K. Fire Emblem 3 Houses. Fuck your students.
Wow, is that a thing that you can do?
Yeah. Isn't it?
I mean, you can, take them to tea and stuff.
Oh, okay. Take them to tea. All right. That's what the kids calling it these days, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, in my day it was hot coffee.
Oh.
Back when I was in high school, that was what having friends in video games led to.
Oh,
George,
man.
don't tell us about your dirty past yet. Let's keep that in your bedroom. From Hideo Kojima, but way smarter and co. Disco Elysium. Communism will win.
I wish I had more commentary. I'm getting to it either this or next week, I promise, guys.
Well, if you stop talking about
played
Death
a lot?
Stranding for 10 minutes, you'd be okay.
We will this podcast.
No.
So the idea is that in Disco Elysium has less of a morality system than which political faction you get involved with, and apparently one of them just straight up is communists.
Didn't the developers of Disco Elysium quote Marx and stuff at the Game Awards when they won the narrative award?
If there is an actual in-game communist party, it would make sense.
From AK Cola the Doctor, The Outer Worlds, Capitalism, in Space, which is most
So
space.
you got something for everyone at the side of the Thanksgiving arguments this year.
Yeah, there's a lot.
You know?
There's a lot of variety in what people's games of the year are.
if you find your society polarized by differing thoughts on economic ideologies, there's a game for you.
From Garan Winter, Death Stranding. It's not Sekiro.
You know what? He's not wrong. Or she.
He's not wrong. He's technically correct.
Yeah. That's definitely...
And I'm going to leave it at that.
Listen, we don't need to hear your sex tape live on the air with Hideo Kojima, okay? We don't need...
I think it's less of a
face when
I know, looking at George's really sad face is kind of off-putting.
It's less of a sex tape and more of a like blackmail hidden microphone.
He's definitely got something on you, man.
I mean, I'm definitely a Kojima fan, I'll give you that, but I feel like I was kind of roped into it for job purposes, more so than it would have happened naturally. I don't know if it's like full on passionate, I initiated the sex tape. It's a little more complicated than that. Yeah, humans are complicated, and I'm a human. Don't simplify me. Don't diminish my human experience, guys.
You're a biking human. A man who bikes.
They're like Vikings, but far more lamer.
Biking. You said biking or Viking?
Yeah.
Biking.
Biking, right?
We're just like Vikings, but
Vikings.
gentler and kinder. And
So, a lot of people responded with the game of the year, which is Sekiro, no doubt. Lots of different puns. Stuff like Daniel Parr, who says, Sekiro, shadows die, nice. Nice and simple.
but
D-Stick says, Sekiro, mash, parry, pray.
Right.
Which I can agree with.
Right.
that's how I remember it.
I
Lots of
remember
praying.
once you got past, after a while.
Especially that last boss.
Thoracue says, Sekiro, Neo, but good.
I remember people being okay with Neo.
I remember playing the demo and thinking it looked nice.
Oh, that's right. That game. I always wanted to try it. Huh.
But you played Sekiro, so do you need to?
Probably not. I don't need
making a
another
second one,
hard
right?
game in my life. I'm good. Sekiro is
They make
quenched that thirst.
Yeah, they're making a second Neo, like Neo 2. I think it comes out early next year. So
Isn't it already out?
Neo 2? Really? I mean, it could be. Sekiro kind of shot all over their shtick, so I don't know. We got XP Cake, who says, Babber is you. Game is good. Did any of us play Babber is you?
No, because I'm.
There's so many games this year.
So many small games this year.
And we just have like 2-3 weeks until we're gonna try to wrap everything up, and in that time I'm gonna try to be cramming in some stuff. Unfortunately, Baba's not on the list, and that makes me sad.
Yeah, I'll do some cramming as well, actually.
I'm gonna be doing Disco Elysium for sure.
George, I can see you clicking.
I know, and I'm thinking about my list. Like, I still have that Outer Wilds code that we didn't actually give to anyone during the streaming episode. What
was that for?
It was for
PC?
Xbox One, which is why no one ended up getting it. God damn it.
I want to play it. I do. I actually want to go back. That is like the one game I think I haven't played from this year that I definitely should.
You should play it. It's good.
Okay, see,
and I hate mistypes.
We need
games.
to cram. We need that week.
Outer Wilds is appearing a lot in our Twitter feedback as well.
Yeah, it's good.
Julesy says, Outer Wilds, existential nightmare fun.
Yes.
That sounds like my kind of fun.
I was going to say that's going to give George nightmares, truly. Just even the words, existential nightmare fun.
I have so much fun with my existential nightmares, though. That's my whole personality.
There has been no game this year that has given me such anxiety as Outer Wilds, man. Like, just... You're just sitting there just like, oh no! This is happening! You just don't know what to expect.
I need to play this on my lunch, don't I?
It's
I need
so
to play
good.
this. Chris Sanchez says, Sayonara Wild Hearts, rhythmic sword breakup.
Yeah. I missed a lot of games this year.
Is because the songs are they like breakup lyrics?
It's kind of about hearts and breaking up and stuff.
Oh,
Sayonara Wild Hearts is appearing quite a few times. I feel like I need to go back and play that with a controller, because when I played it on iOS Touch, the controls were bad. They were not good. It was it was kind of off-putting. So I feel like I need to go back and play that as well.
that is actually on my crams list. By the time we do the Game Awards, I should have some time in that logged.
I think it's pretty short, but we'll see. You says Devil May Cry 5. Bang, bang, bang.
All right.
All these policies are over my head.
Tadano says Smash Ultimate. Is that from this year? Does that count?
Very late 2018, wasn't it? It was in the Game Awards this year because it was after last year's show, but only barely.
Oh, okay. Because I gave it my Game of the Year last year, didn't I? I thought I did.
Well, they gave it the best fighting game of the year.
It's a fighting game, Liam.
Yeah, that won the award. It's official now.
Fighting game, Liam.
I can't work under these conditions.
The Federal Bureau of Genre Enforcement has prescribed it the fighting game tag. You can't argue now.
Yeah, I'm sure Keeley,
It's official.
Keeley, the man who decides genre, the man who decides everything about video games, has spoken.
He's the only one
who am
left.
I to question?
Real talk. Can you imagine a discussion in the back rooms between Game Award judges over whether or not they should nominate Smash for that category? It seems redundant to me. Like it's a game where all you do is fight everyone.
I would love to see the judges for the Game Awards. Like, can you imagine if it's somebody like David Cage and like Yu Suzuki and they're like, Super Smash Brothers, fighting game or not?
Supposedly it's video game journalists, which I bet would be even worse.
From Ryan, Hero of Time, he says Kingdom Hearts 3, Sora, Donald, Goofy.
Oh, that works.
I can almost. I mean,
I don't know about the game he
feel
picked,
the disdain.
but
The flip side's Untitled Goose Game. Honk, honk, honk.
nice. I actually played that this week. Yeah.
Ooh.
It was a small game. I could fit it in between, like, hanging out with my sister. Like, it was a very short, easy game. This is what I thought it was, which it should be. And it was good.
Yeah.
I liked it.
George, maybe you'll know more about this one. Love Knife says Hypnospace Outlaw. Stand with Goopa.
So, Hypnospace Outlaw includes a hilarious sub-story in which the internet loses its nuts over a little fish named Goober, and how you have to enforce copyright takedowns from Goober's IP holders against weird Goober fan pages, and it causes like a Goobergate scandal. That's what that's all about. Anyways,
sounds pretty good.
It's a funny game that I don't think enough people are talking about this time, as they like round up the funniest, weirdest games of this year, full of weird, fun, surprisingly polished stuff.
Weird. I think I can talk about it now, like doing the IGF stuff, but like I don't think Hypnospace Outlaw was in the IGF either, which was a big surprise considering it's like one of the highly rated indie games of this year. I could be wrong though, I'm not really sure.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I'm surprised with how little press it's been getting since launch.
I think it sold really well though, so I don't know. Take the rough with the smooth, I guess.
I guess.
And I guess we'll finish with Jose Enrique, which says Resident Evil 2, beaten 16 times. I feel like I'm surprised at how much Resident Evil 2 is standing out in people's like Game of the Year lists.
Why?
Just because it's a remake. I mean, it's amazing, right? We all three of us loved it.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
It's no doubt like one of the best looking games this year. Design wise, it's really good, but it's a remake, right? Has a remake ever come up as like one of the Game of the Years before?
Yeah, I mean, it is a remake, so I would say it's relatively new.
I just imagine like
Resident Evil Shadow of the Colossus, wasn't that
Was
like
that up
getting
for-
some
maybe?
VGA nominees last year?
I feel like it's weird because that Shadow of the Colossus remake like came and went. Like it just came along and people were like,
it sticks.
this
It
is
sticks out in my mind because I made a pretty cool video.
Wait, it was a remake? Was it like an enhanced one?
No, it was a full...
No, they made a Shadow of the Colossus remake.
Wait,
Yeah.
what?
They did
Bluepoint
the remaster.
did it.
They did the remaster of Ico and Shadow of the Colossus for PS3, and then Bluepoint Games, who are like one of the best port masters in the world, like they did a full-on remake of Shadow of the Colossus last year.
And it's a good remake too.
Yeah,
It's,
but it does feel like it just came and went. Like it came, and then it went.
I think one of the other aspects to that too is that everyone kind of discovered Shadow of the Colossus might have been a lot more simpler than they remembered. It's kind of the point, but there is not a lot going on to keep you engaged into the long tail of that product's lifespan like games nowadays are built for.
I'm not sure, yeah. It did feel weird. This year was good for games. I mean, the three of us are going to get onto that talk, the Dad Awards later.
Yeah, this episode is us gonna be like talking shit about movies and TV for an uncommon but not that uncommon distraction.
Yeah, but this episode
Oh, boy.
is not the Dad Awards. We're gonna do some other stuff. We're capping off a decade of video games as well. One of probably, the most influential gaming decades ever. So many gaming trends have come out the woodwork. So we'll talk about that later. But today, boys, it's about TV and movies. Namely, ones that take place in space and a TV show based on a video game. So I guess we're in the wheelhouse of what we are known for.
What are we?
I guess I'm known for not being able to suspend my disbelief. One of the things that could not escape my mind throughout both the hype cycle and watching the latest Star Wars movie is that I do not believe any of the grandstanding over this being a final movie. Like,
Yeah.
I am sure there's going to be more after this.
The final scene, like, no spoilers yet, but the final scene, if nobody thought that was, like, setting up for a new trilogy in, like, whatever, how many years, 5 years or whatever, and let all the, the Obi-Wan TV show come out, the Mandalorian and the Rogue Ones and blah, 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 and then to have, like, a new main series is just doesn't understand how money works.
Yeah.
Because that final scene is put there so you can have a new trilogy sometime in the future.
Yeah.
I think because of this, the saturation and how long Star Wars has been around, like, I can only really get into it if it's meta-aware and weird. The whole while, like, I'm keeping in the back of my head, like, it's 2019. Superman has died and come back how many times now?
Yeah.
No one in the X-Men, the titular, like, core crew of 8 to 10 X-Men, that franchise tends to fall around, never permanently die. James Bond's never really gonna die in any of those movies.
But the difference with those is you can actually kill them via shitty movies. So, for example, the Fantastic Four will never live again. X-Men, after the most recent X-Men movies, it's going to be a rough ride for them to come back. Green Lantern, can you imagine them making another Green Lantern movie?
But
there are some movies that you just can't come back from. So you can die, but it's in a metaphysical kind of way.
Back in the 90s. You also were not allowed to kill off mainline Star Wars characters in the expanded universe, but eventually they did pick one to die off. So in this new movie that we all just saw, where no one ever really dies, it just felt such like a cop-out to me. Like, I don't know how they can... It feels like because of that, the stakes are so much lower when watching pop culture media these days.
Yes, it's why I don't like Marvel movies that are not the Avengers, because everything will be fine and nobody's gonna die. And the stakes are so low, it's hard to watch. You're just like, well,
and the franchise...
pointless.
These franchises have been around for like half a century. They have seen 5 generations of kids have grown up on Star Wars. That it feels like the movies don't have stakes anymore. To me, at least this one we just watched through with
I don't know. I would agree and disagree with you in the sense that I feel like this is more like a TV show coming to an end kind of feeling than it is like the Lord of the Rings, for example, where it's a set beginning end for like a cast of characters. This is like generations of characters, as well as, you know, us going through our ages of understanding Star Wars and stuff. It's not quite 9 movies of Marvel a year levels of I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
But it's Star Wars, you know, it's exciting. It doesn't come along that often until like 5 years ago, where we started getting all of this Star Wars content, which I feel like has done detrimental to The Rise of Skywalker coming out, because everybody can watch The Mandalorian every week, or they can see Solo or Rogue One and watch Star Wars Rebels and all this kind of stuff, that we're not actually starved of Star Wars content. So if Rise of Skywalker was a mediocre movie, but there was not that much Star Wars content about, and it had the revelations that we can talk about in a bit, because they're the fucking worst thing in the world.
God.
If they had those revelations, it would make that movie like 10 times better for a lot of people. But because there's just so much Star Wars going on all the time right now, the fact that it is a very mediocre movie and it has problems doesn't really help.
Yeah, like, I thought about it myself. There are exceptions to that statement in The Mandalorian. There are a few scenes in The Mandalorian where I was genuinely worried about some new characters they introduced dying off, but in the realm of these big mainline movies, where they're the 40-year-old characters, you know that everyone's gonna at least come back as a ghost later on in the next movie.
I was thinking about this, and I was thinking, why don't I care so much about some of the most famous, popular characters in media's death? Like, Luke's death in The Last Jedi didn't make me feel anything. I don't know if it's the way it was presented.
Do it so dumbly. He just disappears into the Force. Like, that's so dumb.
It's also because it's fake. It's not real, and they can do anything.
And when you first saw Obi-Wan disappear into the, you know, the ether of the Force, you were like, oh, Obi-Wan.
Well, you were also a child.
Yeah, because like back then watching it, you're like, that's like the first time it's happened. Now everyone does it. Now everyone's just disappearing into the Force.
I will admit to. Okay, can we just talk? Can we put the cap on now? Obviously, all three of us are having issues with this movie that we would like to discuss. This is it. This is your 5-second warning. Spoilers are happening. Skip to the whatever timestamp George sets up. Hopefully, he doesn't muddle it up, and it's right in the middle of spoilers.
And it looks like we're forecasted to have about 23 more minutes of spoilers dripping down the panhandle here. If you'd like to skip those on your daily commute, then go ahead and switch over to the 45-minute mark. Back to you, Liam.
Okay.
Everyone does.
When Ben Solo died, when Kylo Ren died for the 4,000th time, and he became part of the Force, was like the biggest cheapening of that idea. It happens with Leia as well, but for some reason her body stays there for a while. She dies, and then her body stays there for ages, and then at the same time as Ben, they both disappear into the Force.
The rapture happened.
How do you not... Like, consistency is like one of the problems with media and pop culture, is sometimes it's hard to do. It's exactly as George says, which is it's hard to suspend your disbelief if there's a lot of inconsistency.
For 40 years. And the more and more stuff you make in your franchise, that just opens up more and more opportunities for inconsistencies and plot holes as the decades go on. We saw this happen with Metal Gear in 20 years, and everyone's like really surprised it's happening with Star Wars over the course of 40 years.
You can have new things happen. The problem is you can't make a movie that is all new things happening and never do any of the old. You can't have healing force powers that have never been used before, apart from Baby Yoda in The Mandalorian. Like, you can't do that.
This one also has a lot of weirdly misplaced nostalgia. Like the new trilogy in general, a lot of very weirdly used nostalgia for the OT. Like the last 3 shots of this movie are something that characters should know or care nothing about, that just comes out of nowhere really, really fast. We're past the spoiler point. So remember when it shows the shot of her walking in front of the 2 suns, like in A New Hope, when Luke walks in front of the 2... Yeah. Like, how does she know about Luke's old house on Tatooine? Why does she bury Leia's lightsaber there? Leia never lived there. Why would Leia want to have her lightsaber buried there?
The Force.
It's because of us. It's because the audience. That shot 40 years ago where Luke walks in front of the two suns was an iconic, amazing shot in cinema history.
It sets up a new trilogy 10 years from now. Force-sensitive users who find those lightsabers in the dirt sets up a new trilogy. Also, she has to say it. She has to say Rey Skywalker because she can't finish the movie by being Rey Palpatine. Oh.
I was hoping she said Palpatine. I was really hoping. So who are you?
Because apparently...
Ray Palpatine.
Do you know what? I found out in the last 10 minutes that I'm really proud of my ancestry of being an evil Sith Lord. now I'm going to go and conquer the galaxy.
Apparently now your parents and your midichlorians matter, when in the last movie they didn't.
All right, since we're talking about Ben dying, like every time someone dies and goes into the Force, like it's just like this hard cut scene. Like it just cuts to whatever's happened next. Like no one cares, right? So when Rey did
it's so annoying.
So Rey, when some Romeo and Juliet thing happened with Rey and Ben, he dies or goes into the Force, and she's like, "Okay, time to go," and then she just gets into a plane and then flies off like nothing.
To Tatooine to bury lightsabers that shouldn't be buried on Tatooine.
Yeah, there was a whole, celebration
she goes back to
at the like they always do, and then
where you get to see the Ewoks party.
Yeah, that was kind of nice. The one thing I will say about this trilogy that for all of its problems, I actually think the Rey and Ren arcs, because they're very intertwined, they're both children of some of the most legendary characters in the universe, right? They are like the descendants of that. So it's really hard to create these new characters and then follow them through to the end. I do think even though so much junk is crowbarred in this last movie to basically rewrite The Last Jedi, the Palpatine thing is literally just a line in the text scroll at the start of the movie, which is so egregiously bad filmmaking.
Bad.
It's so bad.
Nowhere.
Kylo Ren is all of a sudden searching for him. Like,
it's so bad.
How did he hear his voice? Like, what is happening?
He was never even
what
the
is happening
coolest
right
villain.
now? I saw it. I was like, no.
And it's not bad. I actually really like, in my head, when I try and convince myself about this movie, I really like the idea that Rey is Palpatine's granddaughter.
Yeah.
Let alone the questions of, who the fuck was Palpatine fucking having Netflix and chill with that he ended up having a daughter or a son who then had a granddaughter? Like,
this is probably before.
The Sith Lord of the universe is somehow just boning some chicks and making some prodigy out there.
Hey, Sith Lords have needs too.
It seems like it. They're not as celibate as the Jedi, it seems. But, it's not a bad idea. And it is good because some of the best scenes with Rey is when she's like conflicted about anger. She gets really angry. And the bit with the ship where she shoots the Force lightning is like one of the best moments in the film. If it played it off right, and for 2 movies, in the background of the movies, you'd have these little bits. If they had any form of consistency and they had these little bits of Palpatine in the background building up to this one moment where Rey uses Force lightning, and you'd be like, oh shit, that's the guy who uses the Force lightning to, oh my god. But no, it's not that.
Remember how much I shitted on The Last Jedi? Remember that whole Rose and Finn part? Rose is just like a side character now. Like, what was the purpose of it?
Well,
was Ryan Johnson just wasting money? Is that
No, it's absolutely the opposite. George knows even Star Wars is not a defender, is not able to overcome social backlash.
I think it's important to note that this movie managed to piss off both the haters and the lovers of The Last Jedi. Because between our group, like, I'm the one who liked The Last Jedi, but we're actually going to have an easier time talking about this one.
I have come over to liking The Last Jedi, not based on this movie, but based on a third rewatch of it.
I'm wondering how fast that happens nowadays compared to the 80s when the Empire was, like, slapping around everyone's favorite heroes. Back then, the franchise was younger, there was less attachment to it, but there also wasn't internet communities of people who were going to post really, really long, easily accessible essays about why a franchise doing something self-critical is bad, apparently.
Like, it's the biggest problem is that it's just such a waste of the ability to create something interesting instead of panicking and like leaning on nostalgia. Like, you can have the nostalgia, there's nothing wrong with it at all. Like, it's totally okay in the universe to bring back characters from what is beloved movies. The problem is you can't just Deus Ex Machina drop them out of nowhere to fill the glaring plot holes that the inconsistency of writing one movie and then having someone completely change it to then trying to rewrite history and basically just skip episode 8.
There's so many more interesting ways they could have gone with it. Like, the First Order just crops up out of nowhere, and in the original trilogy, like, we have this grand political tragedy of how a republic devolves into fascists. In this movie, we find out that the fleets are literally manifested by ghosts out of nothing. Like, there's no human element to that. Even as sloppy as the prequels were, like, you at least had a tragedy to put together behind the scenes that gave some coherency to why the Empire exists. Here, I don't feel... It's like killing robots. You don't kill... They're just robots. If these are Ghost Star Destroyers they're blasting away, then it feels like it doesn't matter if they're blasting them away.
It's... I don't know. I still would rather watch this movie as a movie than I would watch prequel 1 and 2.
Yeah, and that's, I think, the most surprising thing to me is that given the fan consensus and the tomato meter right now, I was actually expecting this to be the worst Star Wars movie, and I'm happy to say it's not The Phantom Menace.
I don't think it is that bad. I think it is maybe worse than episode 3, but I'm not sure.
I'm wondering if it's actually better than Return of the Jedi.
That is not true.
I think I might. Well, for me, I've always liked the first one. It was like a good popcorn movie. Like, a lot of people hate it, and
that's what I think
I don't like Rogue One, but people love that. So I like that's my taste. Oh, right. I didn't like The Last Jedi. I thought there was a lot of boringness to it. A lot of boringness. The best part of Last Jedi was Rey and Kylo talking to each other. And then they took that best part and they used it in the third one, which was great. And that's the best part of the third one. Nothing else matters but the light and dark side. Only the Jedi stuff matters in the Star Wars trilogy now. Like, that's it. Seeing them mess around. It's like JJ. Yeah. I said this on Twitter. It's like JJ played a bunch of the Star Wars games, like Force Unleashed and all that.
Force Unleashed especially.
Like, they're just doing anything. They're jumping through the air. They're grabbing transports. Like, that's nuts. Like, at the end, he shoots
light speed skipping. What is light speed skipping?
Yeah. And there's like, Palpatine does that, like, electricity thing at the end where he's like basically a god. He's a god.
I don't.
And Rey just goes
don't understand how.
It just bounces it back.
I don't know how the First Order. Like, the First Order must be like the best, most efficient technological unit, because the second movie is entirely based around a standoff in space where they can't jump to light speed because they'll track them. But if they destroy the tracker, they can do it. But then in this movie now, for some reason, even TIE fighters can
cheap ass tiny little TIE fighters
can track you through light speed while you're doing something called light speed skipping. So I'm like, okay, Sure.
But you guys, realize this is what happens when you stretch things out across this many sequels and this many directors, and it feels inevitable. I don't know if there's... Did this happen in the Marvel movies?
No.
Did they...
No.
Did they
Nothing
have
this bad.
This much problems
No.
being consistent over the decades?
Marvel is at least a good popcorn movie. Like it never gets to DC levels. You know, you're not gonna see Joker come out with face tattoos. You're just not gonna see that.
Yeah. Visually, I still think this movie is worth watching in the cinema. Like the sound, if you watch it in IMAX, the sound and the latter half of the movie, I can't deny that it's visually really fucking stunning. All those ships, Exegol, the throne with all the Sith chanting Jewel of Fates. I'm like, I want to dislike this movie, but what's on screen right now is kind of giving me the chills. And when when Sidious fucking his face melting and all that kind of stuff, you're like, yeah, fuck yeah. But then the movie ends, and you have to think about it.
Like that sci-fi, he's attached to this machine and he's floating.
Yeah, he's a weird cyborg
I was like, oh
ghost.
yeah, that's cool.
Do it.
Do it. Strike me down.
Strike me down.
Become the Empress.
I think
all the Sith will embody me.
I think the biggest problem is that whether or not you liked the previous movie, whatever assumption you're making from that point on, J.J. Abrams plays things too safe.
Yeah. I think, as Matt said, I agree with Matt that...
Jedi has never done that in a movie. They're just going nuts. I wish there was more fight with Dark Rey, but... Yeah, I love
that just came out of nowhere and went. So many stuff in the second half.
Because that looked cool. She just appeared. And then it had a lightsaber that folded. And I'm like, where's the rest of that?
Use that.
It's all the new Jedi, the new Sith have these weird lightsabers. And I wanted to see more of that.
Yeah,
it sucks.
Once again, that's Knights of Ren as well. They're in the film, but they get 5 minutes, and then they get fucked up by Kylo Ren anyway.
Yeah,
yeah.
Those scenes where Rey is just Rey and Ren are kind of transferring things through the Force. That's weird, and I like that. I just wish there was more of it, and it was just kind of because In the second one, you find out that the kids are Force sensitive, and then nothing was said about it in the third one. There's so many loose ends. Finn, I got something to tell you, Rey, and then he goes inside the quicksand. You remember that? And
do you know what J.J. Abrams said that is?
I read the article about.
It's bullshit.
Force sensitive.
Wait, what?
Okay,
no, I didn't.
Okay, so we're all dying, and this girl that you've been. You really care about, you're like, oh, wait a minute, Rey, before we die, before we suffocate, I'm Force sensitive. Come on, man. That's what it cut it, because it's such bullshit. It's so stupid.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think so.
If he said that, I would have been...
I'm Force sensitive.
I'm Force sensitive. It's not that I love you. See, I thought there was going to be a little love triangle. I thought Poe liked Finn, and Finn liked Rey.
That happens in the first half of the movie, and I feel like the first half of the movie has a lot more interesting hijinks than the second half, which just kind of goes down a checklist of stuff the kids are going to want to see happening.
Yeah, but that's the problem, is the first half of this movie, Rise of Skywalker, no matter what you think of it, is utterly pointless. It all accumulates in Ren crushing the Sith holocron thingy anyway. It's absolutely pointless.
It is pointless, but it's entertaining. See, this is I feel like the most disappointing thing about the new trilogy, I did like The Last Jedi, but both The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi and this one mirror the beats of the OT uncomfortably close. And Return of the Jedi has an extremely long adventure in Jabba's palace, but the hijinks are interesting. And then Return of the Jedi goes down a checklist of toys to sell to the kids, heroes coming over evil, some things going wrong, but the plan's still more or less going the way they originally planned it in an earlier briefing scene. Luke gets tempted by the dark side, gets real mad, brings the enemy back to the good side. Then you find out that Palpatine's the real bad guy, and they zap each other, and the Ewoks have a party. The Ewoks have a party in both movies.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, the Rey and Ren arc through the 3 movies, I think, is still actually pretty good. I like where both characters end up from where they started, and I feel like they go through a thing. And, like, the one thing that's kind of cool about this movie is that Ben's redemption doesn't feel out of nowhere. It took, like, 2 movies prior of him doing and pulling and tugging back and forth between...
It's a better Kylo Ren movie than it is a Rey movie.
I feel like the kiss, the smooch came out of nowhere, though.
That came out of nowhere.
I knew it was... Come on, you knew it was going to happen. I was so in my chair like this.
Yeah, it was definitely coming.
I was like... And my friend was like, what's happening? I was like, they're going to kiss, and then he's going to die. That's what happens.
Sexual tension... The purposeful sexual tension between the two of them was palpable for the whole of The Last Jedi.
Come on, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was no shirt on.
I didn't see it.
With his wide chest. Oh, man, he does look good, let me say. But
Adam Driver can shaft me.
I didn't know there was sexual tension between them until this one.
Really?
I completely missed it. It flew right over my head.
George missed it. Of course, George missed it.
In The Last Jedi, he's like, touch my hand. And she's like, I want to.
But I want to touch Ben's hand.
Yeah, but I'm
hand.
like, I'm a socially awkward, nerdy white guy who can't tell when people are flirting with me anyway. So, so how would I be able to tell it from this subtle ass mind control body language? Oh, I'm so sorry that they never just flat out say I'm attracted to you. How are you supposed to know otherwise?
George has been on like so many dates
like a genocidal maniac.
The girl doesn't like kiss you. That means she's not into you. You just say, oh, all right, I guess you had a good time. All right, bye.
No, especially these days. Especially that's what that means in 2019.
You know what? You're not wrong. You're not wrong.
Yes, audience, you may think you just heard a 74-year-old man, but I can confirm, looking at the webcam, he's still only in his 30s.
30s? Multiple 30s? Okay, never mind. Let's not talk about that. What else? You guys want to keep talking about Rise of Skywalker or move on to Mandalorian?
No, I think we're good.
So,
I think we're good. Right?
We enjoyed it, right?
I mean, I would not see it again. I was entertained through the first half. Through the second half, it was more like I was smirking and giggling and shrugging at the screen. But I guess, like, the thing is, there's tons to gripe about. It's still not going to be as bad for us as the prequels are. But what's really weird happening in the world right now, though, is that the younger kids who grew up on the prequels are now defending the prequels and trashing the sequels.
Oh my gosh.
So does that mean that 10, 15 years from now, are there going to be a generation of kids who are going to grow up unreasonably defensive of the sequels? And
yes. Definitely.
I'm pretty sure Star Wars is permanent at this point.
I would still say that this trilogy, compared to the prequels, considering what history has done to Star Wars, has been kind of a success.
But it makes me like want to shake my heads around and be like, what the fuck do you people even want? They did what everyone was complaining about so much in the sequels. They got rid of all that green screen. They made the actors run around and emote and have action and had like back to simple, non-political, mythical plots. And that still wasn't enough for some of these fans.
I wish, the only thing I wish is then when Rey reached that Sith place is that Jar Jar Binks came out as the Sith.
If George Lucas was writing it, that's what actually would happen, but all these kids think George Lucas is the genius and Disney are the dummies.
Nobody quite understands just how dumb George Lucas was while making the prequels. It's like he cut his own balls off and ate them.
did he season them? Like, are we talking about raw?
I mean, with like sprinkled Jar Jar.
Is that where blue milk comes from?
Ryan Johnson, man.
Speaking about getting mad about Star Wars, you guys want to move on to The Mandalorian now?
Sure. It is the way.
It is the way. I think this is the way.
He has spoken.
Star Wars, simple, mythical,
video game based quest lines.
Yep. I really was not expecting to like The Mandalorian as much as I ended up doing, but I feel like this is Star Wars.
Game.
No, it's because of Baby Yoda. Without Baby Yoda, Mandalorian wouldn't be anything.
Yeah. Oh God, Baby Yoda! Can we agree? Baby Yoda is literally the most adorable thing. I mean, it's cliche to say now.
It's like a little puppet.
I also
so
really liked Mountain Grandpa, who was escorting him to Baby Yoda, and like the Jawas had a feeling of magic and mystery around them too.
Wait, one thing. If we're talking about Baby Yoda, I do want to go back to Rise of Skywalker for the briefest of seconds to say Babu Freak.
Yes.
Was also really adorable.
Yes.
Babu Freak was really adorable.
I was giggling.
That was an entertaining hijink from the first half.
He and Baby Yoda are like, they're almost tied, but I think Baby Yoda edges it.
So Star Wars is hyping up this final end, the conclusive finish of the Skywalker saga, even though Star Wars is still churning along with an entirely new section of the universe just fine with The Mandalorian. 2 spin-off movies just came out. They're I don't know, have they finished running Rebels yet, or is Rebels still...
Rebels is finished.
Point is, there's a lot going on in Star Wars right now. We have multiple cute green alien baby characters at play, and the whole cinematic, climatic finality of this movie completely fell flat because I was watching The Mandalorian a couple nights before. But yeah, I was not expecting to like side stories about simple, brutish, meathead characters like Mandalorians, but it ends up depicting the universe from their perspective in a way that I think is really interesting, and that's one where there's like a noble conflict behind the simple contracts of bounty hunt. Everyone else seems to think that bounty hunting is a more complicated profession than the Mandalorians do. And knowing that they use their bounty huntings to contribute to a communal fund back home gives them this kind of Viking raider type feel. Like they accidentally got introduced to sci-fi technology and intergalactic trade while they were in their Bronze Age or something. There's a sense of community and like nationhood among his clan that was really interesting to hear him talk about with that lady. I have a question. Did you guys see episode 4 of Mandalorian?
Yeah.
Was that the one with the shrimp farmers? Which one has the shrimp farmers?
That's the 4th one.
Yeah. Was that a lady Mandalorian or a lady in Mandalorian armor?
She wasn't a Mandalorian.
Wait, where? The one who makes his armor?
The one he wrestles with and has like a little bit of tension with.
She's not a Mandalorian.
Okay. Yeah. So she's like really, really good at fighting and is wearing armor awfully similar to him.
She said she was a resistance fighter.
And they do a bit of characterization around the First Order cropping up so fast. There's a line where they're like, oh, well, shouldn't you report these bandits to the Republic? And everyone laughs and is like, yeah, good luck with that. They'll never solve the problem. So you get the vibe that the New Republic might be a weak, ineffectual government, but
they say that even about they say it about the Empire as well, right? Because when he goes to visit Werner Herzog, he's like, yes, the Empire wants this, and he's like, there is no Empire. He's like, what do you like? There's nothing of you guys left. So it's kind of like, I think in that period of limbo where the New Republic that rose from the ashes of the Death Star exploding, and the Empire becoming the First Order is kind of happening. So both were kind of in limbo at this point.
So I guess it'll be interesting to see what is one of the most questionable inconsistencies of the new trilogy from the perspective of someone who might have a better vantage point for what that looked like on the grounds of the universe.
Wait, the Mandalorian is after the Death Star?
It takes place after. Yeah,
after the OT and before the ST.
Wait,
It's not.
That doesn't make any sense.
Baby Yoda, and it's not Boba Fett.
Right.
Yeah. So
he's a Mandalorian, and that is a Yoda. I don't know, because Yoda's species doesn't have a name.
Right.
We've seen Yaddle, and we've seen Yoda, and now we've seen this baby. One of them.
Everybody forgets about Yaddle.
Maybe this is Yaddle and Yoda's baby. Maybe Yaddle and Yoda banged, and this is their 50 years ago, and this is the 50-year-old baby.
Good it was.
I guess also this is like why Yodas and Yaddles are so old and wise is because by the time they're 50, everyone's still treating them like a baby. So maybe they get a lot of
wisdom.
Okay, yeah, a lot of wisdom early on.
Yeah, it takes place before the sequels, but it's 5 years after the Luke blows up the Death Star or something. The Battle of Yavin, I think it's 5 years after that.
It's also an interesting dynamic that the wreckage from the original Star Wars sustains these people for decades.
Yeah, like all the junkers and scrapyards and stuff are based on just massive crashed Star Destroyers and such.
Like Rey grew up scavenging out of an old Star Destroyer crash site. And
so I didn't like The Mandalorian after the first 2 episodes, I want to say. I had to get used to the very slow burn of it. I didn't like the Jawa episode. It's very what?
It's made for kids, I feel. Like the first scene.
Star Wars.
I was like, it might be a little adult. Then it's just made for kids.
Congratulations, you discovered Star.
Yeah, it's made for kids.
What's hard about growing old as a Star Wars fan?
Yeah.
I don't know if I agree with that necessarily, but I understand what you mean in terms of it doesn't take too many risks. But like I saw episode 4 with the shrimp farmers is when I really started to like it because I got on board with the whole video game quest systems of the TV show. It doesn't have an arc. It has Mandalorian protecting Baby Yoda, and that is its story. But that story never progresses. So then you just have to enjoy the Stargate SG-1 style episode.
Well, I want to find out why the Empire wants to experiment on a Baby Yoda.
Why would they not want to experiment on a Baby Yoda? Yoda just died. They know who Yoda is.
Well, that's a question that's going to keep me going. I want to know what teenage Yoda looks like. Like, what is it? What happens when Yoda learns how to curse and stuff?
He's also 50 years old, which is excellent. That is so good. I love that line with Werner Herzog's like, the target is 50 years old. I can't tell you more. And then you find it. It's just a tiny little baby.
I also want to know more about that lady with the shrimp farmers. I do have my suspicion she might be a lady Mandalorian because her and him know the same fighting moves.
But the people who are Mandalorians are religion. They're not a race of people.
Yeah.
Huh.
So they could be anybody under the masks.
Yeah.
Like in the 6th episode, they say something about him being like a Twi'lek or something, like under his mask or something like that. They're like, oh, I bet he's like da-da-da-da-da. So anybody can be a Mandalorian. It's just the religion, right?
Yeah.
So any like bipedal humanoid-looking alien qualifies?
Probably not even
so long
that.
as it
Probably anybody.
fits that armor.
Yeah, I think so. As long as you can get a T visor over your head. Have you seen the 6th episode?
No, I stopped at 4.
Oh, Matt, have you seen the 6th episode? That's my favorite episode. That episode rocks.
Let me see. What was that one?
The one that has Bill Burr in it.
Oh, yeah.
And it has Richard Owade from the IT crowd as a droid.
The IT crowd.
That episode's my favorite.
I didn't like the pacing of it. Like it's just like when they were trapped on there, and the people were supposed to be coming
Don't
for
spoil
them,
it for George.
and then they were just running around fighting each other. And it's just like, wait, I thought like the enemy was coming, but apparently not. Apparently they can wait until the end of the episode to give the tracker to the guy for like. Like it's just weird stuff like that. Just kind of weirded me out with the Mandalorian. I still enjoy it. I'm still watch it because of Baby Yoda, but like some of the stuff is just really like a little off. And of course, episode 3, the girl that should be Wonder Woman and not Gal, whatever her name is. Swole girl, man. And that's a girl who trains, man. That's what I'm talking about.
Wait, are you talking about who I think is the Mandalorian
the girl you're
lady?
talking about who fights? Yes.
Yeah, I like her.
Is that
She's
the
cool.
fourth or third episode?
It's for
Mandalorian teams up
farmers.
with an ex-soldier to protect a village from raiders. Okay, so I have
Is that
questions.
the third episode or the fourth?
It's the fourth. It's the fourth.
Oh,
and
right,
and I
okay,
have
yeah.
questions about the incredible poverty those people are living in. How is there a community in the Star Wars universe of humans who have contact with the intergalactic community but don't have electricity and plastic and running water or like permanent buildings?
How do people in parts of America live in poverty yet are part of America?
George is used to his privilege over here.
How did Luke grow up on Tatooine and had to scavenge and also live on a moisture farm?
This is actually my basis of comparison. In the first movie, we're given an establishment that the people who are living on the edges of the Empire in the backwoods have electronics and droids. They can buy robots and
No, but we're assuming we're assuming the Mandalorian is like the outer rim, right? It's like off the Empire's grid. Like there are areas. This is the one thing I don't think Star Wars explains very well in terms of its canon, but for the most part, what the Empire and the Republic control is actually kind of not that big a part of space, like the inhabited worlds. And like the further you go out of the Outer Rim and stuff, the less you see of the Empire and the Republic. So the more like the Mandalorian's trying to escape, the more he's going out towards where Exegol is, which is where Sidious is in Rise of Skywalker. The further away you are from the reach of the Empire. So if these people are living like out in the God knows arse end of nowhere of space, it doesn't surprise me they're not connected to technology. And
they have like 3 metal pans. They're living like the Stone Age. They live like the Ewoks, but it's made explicitly clear that the Ewoks have never seen that technology before in their lives. But these are like they speak the language. They know what spaceships are, yet they don't have flashlights.
You know who also doesn't have flashlights? The Witcher.
Ah, good segue. Good segue.
We've talked about
Star
Wars.
And he can see in the dark.
An hour of Star Wars is going to segue us into probably not nearly as much Witcher, but it's a very similar feeling. Another Netflix series made out of a property we follow because we're
a good
dorks.
property.
I didn't know if
I
was
have
gonna like
mixed
Superman.
feelings.
Henry? Was his name
So
Henry?
wait.
Oh, you're talking
How
about
many-
Henry Cavill.
How many episodes each are you
2.
both through?
2.
Watched 2 last night.
Okay,
real
so
quick.
I'm the furthest ahead. This is great. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
How many episodes, Liam?
3, but I think the 3rd episode is the best episode so far, so I kind of...
Yeah,
this
good,
covers it.
okay. First, I was a little lukewarm on. Second, I was like, all right, they seem to be going in a good
Any
direction.
Yennefer
So that's
progression?
good
Yeah.
to hear.
In part 3?
Say again?
Yennefer progression in part 3? Because I know what's going to happen to
oh,
Yennefer. I'm just trying to figure
Oh,
out.
baby.
Yeah, Yennefer's not hot yet.
It is... It
No
is,
spoilers. People may not know
you
the Witcher
guys-
story.
You don't know what's coming yet.
Okay,
3rd
good.
episode has a lot of Yennefer, doing Yennefer things to become Yennefer.
Oh,
So,
weird.
Yeah,
Ready
weird.
for that?
So-
but it has like Geralt actually doing a quest. It actually has Geralt doing what he does in the video games, which is kind
Okay.
of like the Mandalorian. He does a quest from the start of the episode to the end. He interrogates people, like he finds
Nice.
out about their backstory, and then he fights the monster. Episode 3 so far is the best one. Like the first one, I was like, oh no. Is this TV show bad? Oh no.
No.
And then
Yeah.
the second episode was like, it's all right. And then the third one, I was like, okay, yeah, they're going places now.
I had the opposite reaction. I thought it was gonna be bad. You said when I saw it was Henry, the Superman from the DC. I was like, oh no, this is not gonna be good. But he actually, it's not too bad.
He's
like you get
good.
used to his voice.
No.
and stuff like it's like okay, I get it, and
I actually like his voice.
yeah,
It almost sounds overdubbed or something.
Yeah.
Like he's way closer to the mic than everyone else.
yeah, it's like down his mouth, right?
There are definitely times where where you can see he's doing the voice on set, but when he does it, because it's a certain tone that he can't reach often, he's like, yeah, you're gonna call the Witcher. So he's really quiet. So they obviously had to bring him into the studio to have him dub it. So then the audible level of how much he opens his mouth versus how much audio that comes out is so out of sync. It's weird.
I also just want to point out that because of latency, Skype compressed what you said in front of the mic into a beautiful mess. It sounded like complete gibberish and was wonderful.
Amazing.
Yeah.
For 2 episodes, I would say I like it. I didn't really like the whole Siri start. It was a little. It's
Choose
a little
your
off.
destiny.
A little off.
Yeah. Also,
off.
like all the stuff with like Yennefer and like Renri or whatever. The first
It's
like the
Renfrey.
Renfrey, like the girls of the apocalypse or something. It is not good at explaining that. It's not good at that.
So what is going on here is that we're watching an adaptation of short stories from the first 2 Witcher books alongside a more expanded, slightly original version of backstories that get into in the later books. And you'll notice that the original stuff goes a lot slower than the adaptations. I was like thrilled at seeing Geralt prance through those fields in episode 2 with Dandelion strumming behind him. It looked exactly like what I was picturing from the books. But the other stories that it cuts to from besides that are not that related to it. And in my opinion, the good stuff are the Geralt adventures. The other 2 that cut away have some interesting moments, but aren't the meat and potatoes that I want to watch it for.
Like the second and the third episode focus a lot on Yennefer, less on Ciri, which is kind of good because it's not been great so far. But the Yennefer stuff, and it's still like all over the place. Like, what are they talking about? They don't explain it very well. They're just like, this thing is happening. What is the thing? And they use... You know when you watch something that has so much prose in it, and the problem with The Witcher is everybody talks in fantasy prose to like an almost anal degree, where they're just naming
jargon.
the towns and the places, and you're like, I don't know what that is yet. You haven't been there. And it wasn't until like where I remember I was watching an adaptation of the video game, which is when after the first episode, it takes place in Blaviken.
Yeah, when
And
also I
throughout
kind
the
of
whole video game, Geralt is known as the Butcher of Blaviken. And you're like, oh, when did that happen? And then you get to see it in the TV show, and then, Dandelion calls him the Butcher of Blaviken, and you're like, oh yeah, just like the video game. And there's just a lot of like stuff they don't piece together very well.
I had kind of wished that they had started off on a lighthearted story, because the Butcher of Blaviken is the one that establishes the Witcher as like navigating 2 sides of incredibly edgy factions. When I think of the Witcher, I think of him getting plastered with his friends, especially his girlfriends, and having like good, funny, wholehearted conversations. Like the twist is that he's not emotionally deprived. He's just kind of shy and ostracized, and I wish there was more humor and warmth, but I see that there's some of it coming out slowly. I just kind of wish it was happening faster.
I like Henry's portrayal of Geralt so far, and I think like the set designs and everything, they're not... The one thing I'm a bit annoyed about is it's just not as like... The music is not the same.
Yeah.
It doesn't have the same weight, but also like it's not very colorful. It's really drab fantasy. But if you play The Witcher 3 or The Witcher 2, it's so bright and lush. Like when he goes to Temeria in the 3rd episode for like a brief day or whatever. And Temeria is like this sunny, wonderful, bright town and everything, and the fields and everything, but everywhere's grey. Everywhere. Yeah. In fact, it's completely covered in snow the whole time, and I'm kind of a bit annoyed that it doesn't take some cues from the video games to create this really lush, beautiful world. It just has typical drab fantasy castles and stuff.
I think the production values is the weakest link in the chain. A lot of scenes look very ABC's daytime special.
And they're like this, like these shots are like very like, just like, oh, we're showing him walking on a horse across here, like
it's
while
the
you're
outdoor stuff.
Dialogue. It's just like
the composting, the background, the perspective.
Come on.
The perspective on a lot of outdoor shots is wrong. Like, you'll see grass that looks too close to the camera for how far the grass in the distance is from the camera. Weird shadow lighting not matching up. Like, you can tell which scenes are full of the green screen and which ones aren't, and that's real distracting.
There's like sometimes when the acting is really not good, and you're like, "Whew, is this the take you're gonna go with?"
You read that back?
Out of all of the takes you took, out of all the takes you took for this scene, you're gonna roll with that one.
Yo,
I'm a little disappointed though that of all the three medias we've talked about, though, none of them really seem to rise above and beyond. Like, we're either entertained but with caveats, or annoyed but with some entertaining caveats, depending on whether or not we're talking about The Mandalorian, Star Wars, or Witcher. I just worry
feel like
that
I'm in the same place with both Mandalorian and The Witcher. I'm kind of like, I'm gonna continue watching them. I'm enjoying them, but they are not the next best
excellent
thing.
Yeah, neither of them are excellent, and I'm happy it's not bad, but I worry that it's going to get forgotten if it's not pushing quality up to the next level, you know?
And they need to be popular because the way they're setting it up is this is going to be a long series. It's not going to be one season.
I'm hoping that the first season is just going to be more rough. Now that these three intersecting storylines are getting set up, when they all meet, it should be a good format for a weekly episode Geralt adventure, because that's how a lot of the books were structured. The Witcher and the side stories from the games. Oh, what if there's a Bloody Baron arc in this series?
I will admit, episode 3 is kind of a combination of... I have not read the book, so it's a combination of what happens in the Bloody Baron a little bit, but with a different twist, with a different character kind of thing. But I felt like while I was watching it, there were little tidbits about the Bloody Baron quest in episode 3, but I could be wrong. See, I don't know how to approach this, guys. Are you thinking we're watching an adaptation of the books, or we're watching an adaptation of the hybrid that is The Witcher 3 and the books?
Adaptation of an adaptation.
I think it's the hybrid. And I also think it's funny that it's now that Andrzej Sapkowski is starting to strike a better deal for himself with the rights holders from the games. Now that it's pulling in Netflix money and has an already... Now that there's a non-video game version of The Witcher, he's suddenly way more interested in getting more royalties.
Oh my gosh, man.
It's funny because I did watch an interview with him and I think her name's Lauren Hirsch, like the creator of the Witcher TV show. And it's funny, you could see like his genuine enthusiasm for as much as that man could possibly ever give, which is not much, but... him like, yes, I'm looking forward to you creating my worlds and making my daughters become beautiful. And you think, man, this dude hated the games. Like,
yep.
TV different though.
His daughters?
Well, yeah.
He was like saying something about my daughter, like it's like my daughter. The Witcher is like my daughter.
Interesting. Okay.
Why is it gotta have a gender?
Yeah,
that makes it a little weird.
My daughters. Okay. Wait. Yeah, Yennefer and Trish. Okay.
Why did he not pick son or just a non-ambiguous child? Now.
My child. Yeah.
Yeah,
my child.
That makes more sense to me than my daughter. When you say my daughter, you like start wondering whether or not you're gonna have to take her to prom.
He was like comparing something and something, like maybe two different parts of his book, like my two daughters. You're making my choose which one is more beautiful.
Oh boy.
That's what he said.
Just want to say that if I ever grow up and have multiple daughters, I will love them both equally.
Hey, you say that now. And so one pisses you
What
off.
if one?
Yeah, I guess there's no way to find out until you try, right?
What if one turns out to be Space Hitler?
So, we all watched.
Oh, he glosses over that, doesn't he?
Yeah, I'm segueing now. Not as elegant as Matt, but I'm trying my darndest. God damn it!
What?
We all watched some media this week that we have mixed feelings on. In which we're either still leaning positive or leaning negative. However, I love garbage. And decided before seeing Star Wars that I wanted to go see Cats. And I have never seen Cats before in my life. Reviews. I didn't not really know what I was in for. One of the what's it at, Matt? What's it at?
18%.
Okay, so my whole life I had thought that Cats was an avant-garde, edgy, off-Broadway thing because of a commercial from the 90s that just had like a pitch black scene of someone in an ugly, sewage-covered, ratty-ass cat costume reaching his hand out to another ugly-ass hand that touches it. A narrator then says, "Cats. The magic, the mystery, the 7 Tony Award time winner is now playing in your area at Phipps Theater. Cats." And then it would have like that scribble of a title art. So I thought Cats was like a weird, horror, scary, creepy thing. And it turns out that Cats is actually a classic Hollywood 1940s style musical that at one point involves a guy tap dancing while swinging a top hat on a cane. Mm-hmm. It's 2.5 hours of cats introducing themselves with musical numbers that occasionally include a little joke of cat humor, much of which involves how horny this cat is. It's incredibly weird seeing the Twitter discourse over how what these characters that basically look like naked people that rolled around in some glue and some fur has an underlying horniness to it. And then I went and saw the movie. That horniness is overlying. Like they'll make jokes about how sexy everyone's looking tonight and what they're doing later, and then have dance moves where they will just spread their legs in front of the camera, and the camera will like zoom into their flat, featureless, furry slabs of for no reason. I don't know
dude,
why.
The furries. This is your like wheelhouse. You love the
My
furries.
demographic. For some reason, the furries love me. Anyways,
so
point
don't give it a bad
is,
review.
if you want to watch 2.5 hours of really horny CGI cat people introduce themselves so that they can float off on a hot air balloon and die in the atmosphere. That's the actual story. They're all competing over who gets the right during some yearly ritual among this tribe of stray cats wandering around London to see who gets to sneak onto a hot air balloon and float away and die.
What?
And there's a romantic song about it, and Idris Elba is a villain who tries to hijack the balloon and steal it from the cat who rightfully deserves to die, apparently.
But George.
Yeah.
What did you enjoy more, Rise of Skywalker or Cats?
As much as I love garbage, I'm happy I saw Cats first so that it would lower my expectations into actually having some fun through Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah.
I actually fell asleep halfway through Cats. I fell asleep as some cat was introducing themselves as the funny fat cat of the neighborhood. I woke up as some cat was introducing themselves as the edgy cool cat of the neighborhood. Then the movie ended. It's 2 hours of cat introductions.
I can't believe you paid to watch that.
Yeah, but I didn't pay to watch Star Wars because Cats was the first ticket of the night.
Oh, did you just skip?
You sneaky.
You watched Star Wars for free? I had to pay money.
I was thinking of seeing a third movie for... Wait, no, let me read it. No, I didn't see Star Wars for free. I paid $14.99 times 2 to get in there with a friend. I bought a ticket for Cats, walked from Cats into Star Wars. I was thinking about walking from Star Wars into Knives Out, but decided to go home and play Astrobot and watch Witcher instead.
Wait, is that like something you can do in America? Can you do that?
Maybe. I don't know.
Because in Japan,
there's
all
no
the
one
seats
really
are
stopping
numbered.
you.
We have number seats now.
But no one really enforces it.
Well, the other people will enforce it. But if no one didn't
in which
come
case
to the
you just
theater, you got an empty
couple rows
spot.
down.
Just go ahead and take a seat.
Was Rise of Skywalker not busy?
There were 30 empty seats. It was pretty busy, but it
Wow.
wasn't sold out.
Damn.
That's a lot of empty seats for a Star Wars movie.
I mean,
Well,
they
it-
saw The
it
Last
was-
Jedi. Okay, it's not that serious anymore.
It was the
Or maybe
last...
they all watched Cats beforehand, and they were like, "I can't do this today."
It was among the final hours of opening weekend. I wasn't that shocked. It was busy, but not sold out, is what it was.
I went to watch it at midnight on Thursday, the first showing in Japan, and it was the busiest I've ever seen a theater in my life. It was
Damn.
incredible.
What is
The
Japanese...
line for like cinema merchandise, which I didn't even know was a thing until I moved to Japan, was insane.
Yeah.
What is Japanese theater etiquette like? Because you just talked about how you can't walk from movie to movie over there. I mean, you're not supposed to here, but like I said, there's...
It's great. I mean, your ticket is always numbered, and you sit there. Like, your ticket is always numbered, as far as I know. It's numbered and lettered. You can pre-book. Easy,
And it's like
turn up.
expected that you actually will follow and kick anyone out who's in your seat before you.
Yeah. You just be like, sumimasen. And they'll be like,
Because that happened with Star Wars,
Wow.
but it's not something
I
I'm
not in
used to. They
Japan?
didn't do the seat reservations until fairly like past couple of years.
It's been
What-
a thing in Japan ever since I moved here. The first movie I saw in Japan was actually Force Awakens. That was the first movie I saw in Japan. So we've come full circle.
Wow, man, it's
So
been years.
at the movie theater, they don't have at the one I went to yesterday. They didn't have the movie names in front of the individual theaters. It was like Auditorium 9, Auditorium
Yeah.
6, and I think that's to discourage people from walking movie to movie. But I was still able to look it up on my cell phone to see which auditorium to walk into. In Japan, do they do that, or do they have the movie names in front of the auditorium?
They sometimes have the movie names. Yeah, it depends on how big the cinema is, right? But it tends to, your ticket says what screen to go to.
Yeah, because this was the first time I saw them like try to hide what movie was inside which screen. So I think they're
Man,
cracking
you
down on
fucking
what
old
I'm...
Metal Gear Solid this shit up. You're looking at information, staying behind, sneaking in. Fully stealth action.
If I can save $16, I guess I'll do it.
Steal $16.
Yeah, you stole. You stole, man.
Well, it's fine. The money's going to J.J. Abrams anyway. He doesn't need it.
Sure don't. Listen, he thought Kojima was a genius still after Death Stranding, so...
Death Stranding is so much better than you guys think it... I don't know how to...
It was
How to
fine.
be the
It
guy
was
on
fine.
this
I'm just saying it
podcast.
wasn't genius. It wasn't genius. If I made Death Stranding, nobody, no one knows me as a video game developer. If I made Death Stranding, people would be like, "Oh my god, this is amazing! This is amazing! He's a genius!" No one would say that. No one would.
No, I think there'd be a few. I would.
I watched your video, George, about Death Stranding, and it was very heartfelt, and it was lovely, and you did an excellent job of researching into Kojima and everything, and it changed my opinion about how I approached Death Stranding as maybe like, oh, it's an enjoyable game for other people.
never
But then
played.
I played it for an hour after. I was like, oh, maybe I'll give this a second chance. It is just definitely not for me. Like, I can't. The mission structure is too repetitive and frustrating. I have life to live.
Liam, you don't get it. You don't get it. Okay.
And it's time for the break.
Cats, the #1 family musical in America. Cats, the world's most thrilling theatrical event. Cats, the magic, the mystery, the memory will live forever. Cats, the 7-time Tony Award winner, the once-in-a-lifetime experience, the most exciting family musical. In a word, Cats at the Winter Garden Theater. Call Telecharge 212-239-6200.
And we are back in the room.
For more Star Wars talk.
Less Jeff Keighley, more Star Wars.
What did you guys... Wait, no, I was about to ask what did you guys think of the show, but that's something I've been asking for the past hour and a half, right? Well, I guess there's another show to talk about. It's the Jeff Keighley VGA show.
It was as expected.
I really don't know why everyone doesn't shit their pants over the GDC awards instead. Like, honestly, that feels like such a better use of
Because they don't have
time.
Green Day.
They don't have Green Day. They don't have Chiverches.
More Green Day.
They don't have the hot and fresh reveals for highly anticipated upcoming video games like Fast and the Furious Crossroads.
Hey, Gears of War Tactics look pretty good.
That did actually
Apparently,
look pretty decent.
someone is bringing back Telltale's name and logo from the dead to make Wolf Among Us 2.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
But the biggest... God, just so much. I don't know if you guys actually tried to sit through it, but there were so many
I watched all of
commercials.
And
At the
it was
beginning,
all worth it.
commercial.
Sekiro won Game of the Year.
Okay. Yeah, Liam's Jazz at Sekiro won Game of the Year. I don't think the winners shocked people that much.
I mean, best fighting game.
Yeah. Happy to see that one of my favorite fighting game series is got the awarded for the best.
Wait, Liam, do they have a best party game here? I'm sorry, let me see. No, they don't.
It's almost like fighting games and party games can cross over.
It's almost like shut your mouth.
So it was full of commercials. Valve backed out of the Half-Life demo. A lot of these reveals seem very awkward. There's a whole chunk on esports awards to facilitate the esports market and the esports investors. Whereas when you go watch the GDC awards, you just get award after award after award, occasionally interrupted by a heartfelt, detailed speech of some obscure person from the industry. Like this year, they had
hosted by game developers as well.
They had a speech in the middle of the show about the guy who invented cartridges for the Fairchild system, like a completely unknown engineer just lost in the bowels of the industry, managed to get like 20 minutes of a spotlight. It was wonderful, but everyone shits their pants over these instead.
I love the idea that to have a reputable video game award show, you must have Green Day. Like, imagine the Oscars were like, we're trying to reach the kids now, and we know video game streaming is popular. We're going to have, for mid-show entertainment of the Oscars, we're going to have Ninja play Fortnite for 10 minutes, live stream it, live from the Oscars. It's just so odd that you can't have just video game celebration. You have to have other garbage
to fund it, and the downside to the GDC, I guess, is that funding comes from the industry, but the upside is that it ends up looking like it's well-informed and made by the industry. It's meant to be heading out roads anyways.
Dude, Elon Musk was there, bro.
Yeah, he was there. Yeah. Sat next to, like, Hideo... sat next to,
the girl. The girl that everyone likes.
Yeah. Nakamura-san.
I remember when I was snarking through on Discord, I asked my question of if this is going to be a big press event like E3, and as the show went on, no. That question answered itself as a no.
But this show had like
a ton
streaming numbers that E3 wishes it had,
and it like had console
45
announcements.
Million independent streams and. Crazy.
45 million people watch this. They announced the next generation of consoles in it, and it just seemed like everyone's already forgotten about it a week later. Anyways, those next-gen console announcements, I think, are the most interesting fodder for discussion in there, and I still don't really know how much there is to talk about it. For the Xbox Series X, which is an incredibly awkward name, they showed a trailer for Hellblade 2, which looks good.
It was a pretty cool trailer. I like the music.
Does it look next?
For the music.
Does it look next gen to you guys?
Sure. Yeah,
I know, right?
What
That's
is
my
next
reaction
gen
at this
anyway?
point.
I mean,
I guess it's stuff looking like toys now.
You mean like everything looks like The Witcher 3 now? Like that's basically what's going.
I don't know. I feel like they purposely made it like straight on her face because there's a lot of like lip up and down movement and eye twitching and like one eye being open and the other not being open and like you can see her gums and everything. There's a lot of like, this is what face looks like in the next gen.
Yeah.
This is how teeth look like now.
I dug
trailer.
the fog effects around the torches, but yeah, it's going to be interesting with the diminishing returns. Like going from PS3 to PS4, the PS4 launch titles kind of looked on par with PS3 titles, but with more crammed on screen. Whereas it feels like there's actually a more qualitative difference with the two next-gen titles we've seen. We saw League of Legends Convergence and Godfall, which looked less intense than Hellblade 2, but still had a lot more reflections and shininess than you tend to see going on these days. Ray tracing, photogrammetry, and deferred lighting, I guess, are going to be the big things to look forward to from the jump. All those reflections
ray tracing
is ray tracing,
one of the biggest
isn't it?
Things. Like full-on real-time rendering of ray tracing could make a huge difference to how things just generally.
Yeah, it's pretty
I
drastic.
think performance as well, like having high textured, 4K textured models and animations that don't stutter. Like, it's weird because like at the start of this generation, there was a lot of arguments about 30 FPS and 60 FPS, and I used to think it was garbage. But now it's kind of inexcusable to be releasing games that do drop in frame rates and stuff like that. I feel like performance needs to be... Yeah. Even Sekiro. Like there are moments in Sekiro where it just drops down and you're like, it sucks. Because you don't experience it as much anymore. So it's kind of less excusable than it used to be if a game was dipping in and out. Like, what was it? The Link's Awakening remake. That had like major frame rate issues that it had to be patched. And a lot of people were complaining about that because the game looked so visually stunning, but the frame rate was all over the place.
I think it should be noted, too, that the Hellblade 2 trailer was claimed to be in-engine, not necessarily in-game.
See, if it is in-engine, that is pretty impressive tech.
That still could mean they could render it at a low frame rate and speed it up in editing.
That is so dishonest, George. They would never do anything like that. Absolutely not.
Dude, it's a new console gen reveal. For the past 3 ones, we've had straight up FMV trailers look like gameplay. Remember Killzone 2 in E3 2005? George doesn't forget.
Bull shots. So,
the internet doesn't either.
Am I mad? But I like the design of the Xbox.
So it's a box.
The big black monolith.
Yeah.
There's going to be some questions about the design of its name, though. During the show, they revealed it as the Xbox Series X, but after the show, there were some interviews clarifying that they really just want to call it the Xbox, but the fact that they put the Series X at the end at the show means that they might be releasing multiple SKUs with mid-gen skips, like a analog for the PS4 Pro or the Xbox One X.
Don't do that.
So
don't do that.
The official quotes from the Microsoft representatives is, at the Game Awards, you saw that name come to life through the Xbox Series X. Like the first generation Xbox, the next one is simply named Xbox.
So this is the last one, I guess.
Similar to what fans have seen with previous generations, the name Xbox Series X allows room for additional consoles in the future, which is implying that they're naming it just the Xbox to simplify confusion that already exists over whether or not you're buying an Xbox One, an Xbox One S, or an Xbox One X, or, I guess, saving your money for an Xbox Series X, which is actually just a plain old Xbox, but maybe not because they are planning on doing more console iterations in the future pretty soon. Which is actually also happening to the PlayStation 5.
Doing stuff like that, having multiple SKUs of consoles, people don't realize is so detrimental to making a video game. It's such a pain in the ass.
It'll be interesting to hear your thoughts about it, because I was surprised at how much I don't feel like I'm missing out from not having a PS4 Pro. I thought I'd feel more held back than I ended up feeling in the long run.
The problem is you can't skirt the line where you make something like the new 3DS. Remember the new 3DS? Where they had the Xenoblade Chronicles port that only people who had the new Nintendo 3DS could play, whereas nobody else could play it because it was too graphically intensive and only the new Nintendo 3DS could play it, and you'd have to have the stick. You skirt the realms of that being a possibility. Multiple SKUs is a pain in the ass anyway, but making it so there are different powers or they have different features and all that kind of stuff is like, you're making worse games because you're trying to fit around every box. Instead of just like focusing on making the game you want to make and focusing on what your specs are and what you can do. Instead of being like, well, here's our premium class video game that fits on the most powerful of things, and here's our medium version of our video game that's not so good because it can only run on the lower tier console. Just make a fucking console before you fucking like, we're going to make a PS5 Pro. Well, you haven't even released the PS5 yet.
There is a quote by head of engineering, Masayasu Ito, seemingly suggesting that Sony is planning to release a PS5 Pro midway through the PS4 life cycle, or PS5 life cycle, which seems a little early to be announcing that stuff and or planning for it. Could get canned, but I guess that means expect the worst. So that is a quote that I found that exists that can be traced back to Masayasu's primary sources. However, I found it inside of an article that turned out to be another awful, terrible example of game journalism being hilariously bad. These speculations on what next-gen consoles are going to look like in the box and in the gameplay is going to get really, really crazy over the next year, because we're going to see mock-ups show up on the internet and people are going to fall for them and think that they're the real thing. Surprisingly, we already have good pictures of what the PS5 dev kit looks like, as if anyone really needs to care about that in the first place. But there's an International Business Times article, not to be confused with Business Insider, who had the previous interview. International Business Times is a news outlet that very often does publish and break legit news. They were founded fairly recently, within the past decade, online only, but have had their quality go up and down over the years. There was a scandal a few years back where they got caught hiring illegal immigrants and underpaying them to translate Chinese. And I'm wondering if a situation similar to that might be what's happening here. There's an article by an author named Nika Osorio, whose other publications I could not find anywhere, no resume, no LinkedIn about this person, and the article itself reads like like they either don't have a solid grasp on the English language or like it was machine generated by a bot. One of the incredibly weird claims in this article that you'd think human oversight would be able to spot is an assumption that a mock-up they saw of the PlayStation 5 was going to be the real thing when it was really a picture of a refrigerator.
Yeah.
This person wrote an article all about how a leaked mock-up of the PlayStation 5 looks suspiciously true. The only reasoning behind it being that let me get the quote. Quote, "We could not verify the veracity of this image, but ZungEX, who was the Twitter account that posted it, has been a good source of information, particularly about the things related to the gaming industry." Okay, based on what examples? Like, they usually throw links in to prior stories or prior tweets where this person has been a reliable source in the game industry. Quote, "Contrary to the general belief that the PlayStation 5 would be released with the same design as the leaked dev kit, it seems that it will be launched with a similar design as the heavily criticized Xbox Series X. If the image shared by Tipster turns out to be true, quote, which could be a joke, parentheses, Sony's next generation gaming console could look like a double-door refrigerator at first glance." So, at second, third, fourth, and fifth glances, the image is still going to look like a refrigerator, and that should very well explain what you're looking at as a joke, which is something they wrote in the previous sentence.
Garbage.
It's really weird.
Oh no, come on.
This is a really, really weird language they're they're parsing this thing out in.
Well, they're just trying to not be held accountable. They're like, oh no, oops, oh, everybody forget, oh, it's all good.
They issued a little word of correction at the top of the article, and then changed the headline to the PS5 leak that wasn't, and then kind of moved on with their other generalized tech reporting, because I guess this person is either not a person or someone who is cranking these things out at an incredibly low pay rate.
Definitely the second part.
Yeah.
It is possible.
Or it's a hobbyist site.
There is a non-zero chance that it could be written by machine.
So then you need to start making fake images and see if you can trace it back to some Russian bot site.
It is possible to have an algorithm Madlib financial news. I wonder if it's now possible to have an algorithm Madlib upcoming video game console mock-up leak news. So long as
Such
the bot...
a pointless waste of technology. This'll get them. We'll get those gamers.
There's
Here's
so
your
many...
fridges.
There's so many cool things you could do with a combined neural network of self-learning computers that span the entire planet than get 5 cents of ad revenue from angry gamers clicking on a dumb fake news article. We could be solving cancer with this stuff. They could have all these bots playing Folding at Home for like 10 years every minute.
Folding at Home. I remember that. Man, that was a weird experiment as well.
Speaking of weird experiments, we have some letters in the inbox from fans asking where we think Kojima will go next. I wonder who picked these questions out of the box.
And that's all we have time for this week on this episode of Dad and Son.
Well, no, we still have 15 minutes
to blow Kojima some more.
Oh.
It's been a while since you've said anything that, and the fact that it was that, I feel, speaks a lot about you. Anyways,
What do you think I do on this podcast? I mean, let's be honest here. You think I'm here for the news?
If you would like to give Matt something to do on this podcast, then send an email with instructions to dadandsonspodcast@gmail.com.
Yeah, we can watch him now. We can make sure he does it.
I wasn't just watching trailers for 2019 video games.
games to cram before the awards show in January.
I wasn't just playing World of Warcraft, fishing,
on my 3DS.
Oh,
that was a Jimmy
reference to that is.
So our first question this week comes from Alejandro. Given that Hideo says he hopes to make movies with the current studio in the future, which elements of his game do you think will definitely show up in the eventual Hideo Kojima movies? How far up his own ass do you think he'll go?
Oh.
His writing.
I really fucking hope that the movie does not have Kojima writing in it.
I hope it does.
His writing.
I hope it does. I want to see that.
It's probably
trash.
going to. I should not get my hopes up, but by God, I'm still clinging to those days where he had the fan favorite co-writers at his side.
Oh, I can imagine a day. I honestly can. Like, this is not shitting on Hideo Kojima, but I think it's the difference between making games and movies, especially games like Hideo does. I can picture the day where it happens. It's announced. There's a movie coming out by Hideo Kojima, his first ever movie. And then we go through the trundle of it being kind of like teased like a Christopher Nolan movie, and like it's all mysterious. Hideo's first movie. It'll come out and it'll get the same rating as Cats on Metacritic.
Oh.
No.
I can easily see that as a future that will happen.
Well, what are the things different about making games?
Imagine asking that man to condense a story into less than 3 hours.
How long the scenes are going to go? It's just going to be 4 scenes, and it's going to be 3 hours.
I'm hoping that making a movie instead of a game puts a candle under his ass and makes him realize that you do have to push things along faster.
He has people calling him genius. He has people calling him genius.
Yeah, the final cutscene of fucking Death Stranding is like an hour long. Of a
it's
game that was
interrupted by a minute of gameplay.
Of a game that was 50 hours long.
Kojima is not wine, George. He's like cheese. No, cheese, that's a bad example. What's something that rots? Everything else. Oh, you know what? He's
Fruit.
just like a McDonald's sandwich. You know, it kind of stays the same on the outside, but really, it's not a really good sandwich after like, you know, a week or so. Or a few hours. God. Just
I wonder if the first one will be animated or live action.
It'll be live action. Hideo will be like, I'm too powerful.
Do you think it'll be starring Hideo?
No. I think he'll make a cameo.
Like he always does.
Yeah,
he was in
he'll
Death
make
Stranding,
a cameo
under
somewhere.
the bed, you know. Remember that?
Yep. Yeah, well, I guess that about covers it.
Liam, he was under the bed. He was under the bed in Death Stranding.
I know, I saw the clip.
Okay, just making sure.
Time Traveler, I mean, that was the name on the email address, says, because Matt was forced to keep an extra eye on his nutrition, I would like to hear his take on what we decide to put in our bodies.
What?
I, for one, don't think that there is such a thing as bad food, but I sure as hell would have loved it if I was taught what and how much of it my body actually needs.
What? Bad food? All food is good.
All food?
No, you will die eventually if you eat garbage every single day. Absolutely. You will die. Everybody's different. Everyone can handle certain things, I would say, differently. If I were to eat garbage, my body will just crash. Some people, like my little sister that came to visit me this holiday, can eat anything. But she's also young. But she can eat anything. Nothing happens to her. She doesn't get lower in energy. She doesn't get fat. She's nothing. I don't know what happened to my genes. But
No. What that means is that she just poops way more than the rest of us. That's what's happening with people with high metabolism.
Now you're gonna make me pay attention to that. Thank you, George.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, I mean, all energy in the universe is conserved somehow. If more of it's going into her but not staying in her, it's going somewhere else.
Anyways, I would say, as long as you're getting a little bit of everything and you're not just eating garbage every day, you're gonna feel a lot better. You know, have a little salad. You don't have to have salads all the time. Have a little salad a day, or have a little fruits and vegetables every day, and I bet you'll feel a little bit better. That's all I'm saying. Eat your burgers, man. Eat your burgers and fries and stuff, but have a little something. Get your vitamins.
Buy a takeout salad. Keep it in the fridge every like couple hours. Just eat out of a few chunks of it. That's what I do. I don't even bring my food to my dinner table or my desk anymore. I don't even know why I'm still living. That's what I do. Just do that.
Yeah, man. There is such thing as bad food, though. You need to really go to some of those spots that are just like, they literally tell you, you might have a heart attack if you eat this. There is some really bad spots. Man.
Oh, yeah. The American restaurants, sometimes we have to sign a waiver before ordering your 17-course gamer level.
The body's just not supposed to be able to take that much butter.
For some reason, a lot of the gamer bars do that, where they'll have a challenge item on the menu.
Everything has to be a challenge.
That's real popular in Japan, isn't it? Like food eating challenges. I've seen some abroad in Japan videos where you like, if you manage to slurp 100 noodles, you get that to eat them free, and they put your name on a plaque in the restaurant or something.
Maybe. I don't know. I went to a burrito eating contest once.
Where was it?
In Japan.
Yep. What is with that? What is with the Japanese competitive eating scene? Why is that a
tiny
thing?
It's like an oxymoron. How can such a small person fit such a giant meal?
Yeah, no, there are entire YouTube channels. There's that there is a Japanese competitive eater who's a tiny, adorable, small girl. And the whole YouTube channel is her eating this giant, like, watermelon-sized bucket of spicy noodles.
I not heard of this?
Oh yeah. Her metabolism probably has
Is that your type?
Has her in the bathroom all the time. Anyways,
I can't continue with this joke. Forget it. Never mind. I'm gonna stop right there.
So next question is from Doogly Jim.
Oh my God, Doogly Jim.
I don't know if it is Doogly Jim though, because Johnny Cox is the email address, but Doogly Jim was the signature at the bottom of the email, so maybe it's an imposter.
Just read out his email address.
George has often spoke about his biking trip across the country. My question for him is, was there some source of information somewhere giving you guidance? I imagine you have to take specific routes between human settlements. I like that, human settlements. You'd want to take the right road so as not die budgeting and right bike. I can
cover this.
Oh.
He time traveled to 2019. He played a game called Death Stranding. And then he went back in time and just rode a bike.
Specifically for the game, yeah. The bike inspired me for the game inspired me for the bike, not the other way around. Like I said,
not the other way around. No,
right?
Absolutely.
So you're saying he time traveled?
He time traveled.
Oh, just like the name of our person. Second question.
Our previous caller.
Yeah.
Well, when I was after college and before I started applying for serious office jobs, I spent 56 days doing that. Look up a website called the Adventure Cycling Association. For anyone who's interested in doing this, look at the Adventure Cycling Association and see if they have some resources that might plug into a feasible plan you have for this. That will be your first stop. I spent about $3,000, but that was mostly because my bike got stolen and I had to spend $800 on a new one. And... yeah, 56 days, $3,000, start with the ACA. I encourage anyone who's listening who wants to do it to give it a shot if they have the time and the money for that.
Liam is dying.
In the meantime, do you guys got any question while I'm just like aggrandizing myself here?
I just had a thought. Like, I watched the whole of your Death Stranding video, and I really felt like a heartwarming nature about your cycling trip, and I was like, oh, good on you, George. And not once did you mention that your bike was stolen.
Wait.
Yeah, the one night on the whole trip where I did not lock it down to something was the night it got stolen. And it wasn't...
moral of the fucking story.
Right? I immediately learned my lesson. Yeah, I was camping at a lake in Texas, and I put my bike down on a picnic table and pitched my tent next to the picnic table. And when I woke up and just peeked my head out the tent, it was just gone. I did not hear anything or see anything. I just woke up and it wasn't there, and when I went to bed, it was there. And that was the one night of the whole damn trip where I did not lock it down.
Wait. You saw it came back?
No, it never came back. I bought a new one.
It was there, and I was like, what?
No, I went to bed and it was there, and I woke up and it wasn't there.
I had to buy a new one.
I called a cop over who gave me a ride around the park, just kind of looking out the window, seeing if my bike was in a ditch or something, and then said, well, I don't want to get your hopes up, but usually we don't find these things. I'm going to have to let you out. You'll have to get your own ride back into town. Bye. I'm never going to see you again. Fuck you.
He's like your own Die Hardman. He's like, George, I'm sorry. Your bike's gone.
So I got out of the police car and then called a taxi because the cop did not want to give me a 20-minute ride back into the city after I had biked 20 minutes out to this park at the city's edge, and spent the next day buying a new one. And I ended up staying over at the house of the guy at the bike shop who sold me the bike. He gave me a bike and a place to stay for the night. And what kind of great hospitality is that? I made a real meaningful...
And as you were walking out of the bike shop, you saw he had a new bike for sale. And you're like, that bike looks suspiciously familiar.
If it was the case that I was being hoodwinked along an incredibly elaborate retail bike selling reselling scheme, then at least I left that experience with a heartwarming connection having been made with some random weirdo across
$100 less.
Right.
$100. Yeah, right.
You know,
for a bike?
One thing I do wish I got more into in the video was how at the end of the trip, like, you have a social network that spans the country, and there's a lot of weird trailer dwellers who live in the desert.
How can I eject from this podcast?
you
Where
get
is
the
the eject button?
experience of connecting Americans